Hello, my name is Stephen Westland and I work at the University of Leeds, and I'd like to talk to you today about my work on data-driven colour design. So I do this work within the context of the Future Fashion Factory. Future Fashion Factory is a creative cluster funded by the AHRC, and it's led by Leeds University, and I personally lead the data and AI activities within that cluster. Now, the way we're doing this is very much aligned with the new UK Research and Innovation AI strategy. One of the things they argue is that we need the right environment for AI research and innovation to take place. And I would argue at Future Fashion Factory, that's exactly what we've got. We have an ecosystem of more than 200 companies now who've joined the partnership. And the way we distribute the funding, our model, ensures that most of the projects are led by industry and have enabled those companies to access AI technology and algorithms in a way they would otherwise find difficult. So without the support of AHRC and their creative cluster scheme, which set up Future Fashion Factory, I'm not sure I would be giving this talk today. So I'd like to thank those people. Colour is a major factor in the design of products and packaging and in consumer purchase behaviour. It's not the only thing that matters. It's my main interest. Some of you may have seen a few years ago a lot of high-profile cases in the press of companies who were burning or otherwise dumping stock they couldn't sell. This is inefficient, it's not economic, and it's not environmentally good practice, but we know it happens. Now, it happens for all sorts of reasons, but we know from our contacts that one of the reasons it happens is simply because companies have made things which are the wrong colour. They haven't made colours that sell. And what we want to do is to help companies to make the right colour decisions and to provide the right products at the right time at the right price, reducing waste, increasing economic efficiency. Now, one of the things I'll talk about briefly later is colour trend forecasting, which is an important part of this story. But I also want to talk about colour meanings. So many people, I'm sure, think that colour is about aesthetics, and it's often trivialised in that sense. Of course, aesthetics matter. This is a nice, aesthetically pleasing commercial. But the reason this commercial works is because the messages communicated by the colours are the right ones, and they're consistent with the messages from the rest of the information. So, for example, we've used red, white, and black. Equally well, green, white, and black would have been aesthetic. But of course, it's Feel the Wind in Your Fangs, the True Blood mini convertible, exclusively for vampires. The red here symbolises blood, clearly. Red can symbolise many things, but in this case, it's blood, and the white, the vampire, the black. You can see that this colour combination works really well, and the meanings that the colours have are just as important, if not more important, than the aesthetics. But what are these meanings? The problem is they vary. So they vary between cultures, and they can also vary between contexts. So my Colourpedia project has the aim to develop algorithms that can provide a colour palette for any word in the English language, and then for any language in the world. So for example, we might put in the word winter and get these colours, the word blood and get these colours. Now, what can we do with it? I want to just give two examples of applications. There are many applications, but I'm just going to give two in the short time I've got. So a consumer could go into a DIY store where there's a point of sale paint system, and instead of flicking through the colour charts, they enter a word or two into a piece of software, or maybe on their tablet, Maybe they say, I want my room to feel serene or peaceful, or in this case, I want it to feel like winter. And our system generates color palettes that correspond to those words. The consumer then picks one or more of those colors. The paint's matched to that color, mixed in store for them, and they walk away happy. And they've actually bought their paint not directly by color, but actually by emotion. And we know that's really important for consumer engagement. A second application, I'm sure all of you have used things like this. They're called color pickers. And you can find them, for example, in all Microsoft products. You can find them in Adobe products, in PowerPoint, which I used to make this presentation. So you go into the software and you have different ways of picking color. You could have a map shown on the left here, or you can have slider bars, or you can have entering RGB or HSB values directly. But what if one of these tabs here said select color by word? What if you could put in a word like fun and the system generated a set of colors that correspond to that word? It's a way of giving you inspiration. So there's two very, very quick ways in which this work could be used. Now, before I talk about our data-driven work, I want to just briefly mention some work by my PhD student, Yun Chen. We did this work on word color associations, partly to form a set of ground truth data to test our algorithms against. So in short, we put words on screen like powerful and asked people to select 3 colors that correspond to that word. And they could go over here, they could actually choose different ways, whichever way they prefer, different color pickers. In this case, the person's picked green, red, and black. And here's the results of that study, part of it anyway. So you had 15 people taking part. Each person picked 3 colors, so there are 45 colors per word, shown here. The thing that might surprise you, look how consistent they are. Look at the colors picked for bad, for clean, for cold, for healthy, for female, for dead, for hot, for natural, even young. So there's surprising consistency between different participants. And it isn't just as simple as being one colour. Lots of colours or several colours are associated with active or with hot, for example. But we also did the same experiment with Chinese people. So Chinese people who translated the words into Chinese did the same experiment. The words aren't shown, but they're in the same order. So by flicking backwards and forwards, we can have a look at this. So look at the words clean and cold, top middle. They're the British colours. These are the Chinese colours. Look at the words hot and dead on the left-hand side. British colours, Chinese colours. It's rather surprising that there are more similarities than differences between the cultures. But when differences occur, they can be significant and large. So for example, look at the word bad. So I received quite a lot of comments on Twitter recently when I noted that British people associate the colour red with the word bad. We've got evidence for it. Not just this study, but lots of studies. But if you look at the Chinese, you wouldn't find that because red is such a positive colour in that country. So there's a massive cultural difference. And the word active is very green for the British people. Green means go, of course. For Chinese people, red is a much more active colour. So there are cultural differences, and that's why we can't just do it in one language. We have to do it in lots of different languages for this to work. Great experiment, produced some nice publications, but we can't use this method as a way of solving our problem of doing it for every word in the English language and for every language. It's just too laborious. We need a data-driven method. And for that, we use image search, and we're using Google, we could use other search engines. So our hypothesis is that if you put the word lucky, for example, into Google image search, and you get these images, and you might look at the first 100 of these images. If you look at the dominant colors that are coming up in those images, in this case green, then our hypothesis is that those are the colors associated with the word lucky. And if we were to do the same thing in China, in this case we can't use Google, but we're using a similar thing called Baidu. We have a Chinese translation of the word lucky. And you can see, yeah, green's coming out again. Even four-leaf clovers are coming out because of globalization. But you can see how much more red there is, even in these images, in the Chinese case. Because in China, red is very, very much a color associated with good luck for all sorts of cultural reasons with which you're probably familiar. So we get these images. How do we process them? Well, that's where the machine learning comes in. So we have a set of images at the top left. We've extracted the colors, or at least some of them, and shown them on this CIE color space, which is two-dimensional. And then we're going to use a clustering algorithm called k-means, which is an unsupervised machine learning approach. It's automatic. And what it essentially does is find areas in this space where we have clusters of points, and you can see that the biggest cluster is in the green region, two other clusters as well, and we might extract, in this case, for example, these three colors corresponding to this word. So we've had a project to do exactly this. The project has been funded by Akzo Nobel, which are the world's largest or second largest coatings company in the world. They're known mainly in the UK through their brand Dulux Paints. And we've launched this website a few months ago, which is now open to the public or anyone else to explore our ideas. And it's a demo site for our project. So here I am at the demo site. This is live now, pre-recorded, but live for me. I can put in a word, for example, like winter, and get a color palette. Did it twice then. Or the word wood, for example. That's coming up twice. Blood. So you can see that we can generate color palettes for different words, and they can be then exported as images or in file formats where they can be then read into packages like Adobe by designers. This is only working for a subset of English words. It's a demo version at the moment, but it is available to use live. Of course, there are lots of technical details I'm not going into. It's only a short presentation. For example, one big research question, which several people have looked at, is in which color space should you do the clustering? Does it matter? Should it be RGB, for example, or should it be in some more perceptually relevant color space, such as hue, saturation, and brightness? And how do you decide how many clusters there are anyway? You need to set some sort of threshold on that operation. So it's a little bit tricky. And I'm not going to go into all of those questions now, but I will just note that we've published already 2 papers in colour research and application about this research. We have a 3rd paper about to be accepted in the same journal in about a month's time. So please go there if you want further details. So I want to finish with just a second but related project, and this project is about how do we extract colours from fashion shows. So this is something which is part of colour trend forecasting, which is incredibly important for industry and commerce. So people go to these shows, and either at the time or taking photographs, they extract colour palettes that represent the shows. In this case, this is some images from a Burberry fashion show. And The trouble is, it's very time consuming and it's very subjective. And there are loads of these fashion shows. But what if we want to extend this idea, not just to fashion shows, but to the millions of images being posted regularly on, say, Instagram by social media influencers? It literally becomes intractable for humans to do. We need an automatic way of extracting colours from fashion shows. So we can use our unsupervised machine learning method again. But the problem is, if we take the whole image, as we can see on the left here, we're not just getting the clothes, we're also getting all of the background and the crowd, and we don't want that, and it simply isn't going to work. So what we've had to do here is go one step further and use a supervised machine learning approach. We've used a pre-trained people detection function, which is based on deep learning. And we use this to isolate the model and the clothes. So we go from this position here through a series of steps to this position on the right, where we have a mask, which is the white area, where it's only those pixels that we use as input to our unsupervised cluster analysis program to generate the color palettes. And you can see the outcome of that process. Now, we've carried out psychophysical experiments where people were asked to select colors that correspond to the show. Again, I don't have time to show all of those results. But the variance between the observers, the variance between the colours that they picked for the show, though not large, was as large as the variance between their choices and our automatically generated colours. So our system is as good as a typical person is at doing this task. And we've published the data that support that statement. Peiwa is another of my PhD students. We published this this year in International Journal of Fashion Design, Technology and Education if you want further details. Look, we're not without problems. So for our colour meaning project, we need more resources to extract images for different languages and to do this on an ongoing basis because colour meanings change over time. And if we can actually extract the temporal variation in colour meanings, we actually have the possibility of a route into data-driven colour trend forecasting, which could, in my opinion, be incredibly disruptive in a good way on the colour forecasting industry. And both projects I talked about today have problems with skin tones. So in the case of the fashion show, we have the problem that we can extract the model and her clothes, but we still have the skin here. And we can't just remove the colours corresponding to skin because the clothes themselves might be skin coloured. So there's a little bit of inaccuracy there we'd like to fix. And in terms of the colour meaning projects, there are some words like masculine where it just generates loads of pictures of people, which isn't giving us the colour relationships we want. So it works very well for lots of words, and there are some words it doesn't work so well for, and that tends to be where it generates lots of people. So again, we're interested in detecting these people and removing them from our analysis, for example. So the way we're doing this as part of the Future Fashion Factory, we're very much being led by the UK Research and Innovation new AI strategy. And one of the things that they are arguing for is to create the conditions to deliver the next generation of transformative AI technology. And I've already mentioned that I think that what we're trying to do with colour could be really transformative. And they also want to bring researchers, innovators and problem owners together for application-driven research and innovation. That's exactly what the Future Fashion Factory does, remember. It's projects that are led by industry. You have companies and academics working together. And with this particular project, we're aiming quite high. We think the use of AI and data can really be transformative to colour decision making and colour trend forecasting. And we think the UK can lead the way in this. So thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting.